Well, what do you know? Again, today, a strategy that we talked about here on the channel at the beginning of this week, again, paying out big. Gonna show you guys how the 15-minute breakout strategy worked once again on the ES and on the NASDAQ. And I wanna answer some questions. I've been getting some questions about this strategy on like when you should enter and different things. Like, let's just talk about it. Let's go. What's going on, guys? Patrick here, and today is the last and final video that I will be recording in this house in Hawaii. So I'm flying back to Florida tomorrow. We're gonna get all cleaned up here. We're back to Florida, back to work on some big things. I got a lot of things that I'm working on, but I got to get back to the East Coast. It just makes it a lot easier to build and to work on what I want to do. So my goals are set. I'm heading back to Florida. You guys are going to be seeing a lot of cool stuff coming right here on the channel. So if you haven't already hit that subscribe button, you know what to do. We absolutely crushed it once again today here in the live stream. And I want to show you guys kind of what went down with that 15-minute breakout strategy that we've been talking a lot about, and answer some questions that I've been getting as well. So let's dive into it. All right, first things first, pulling up the ES here. You can see if we look at the 15-minute chart right there, obviously in hindsight right now, you see the market went to the moon, but let's just talk about this idea, right? We had the 15-minute candle right there at open. We were below the VWAP, which we know sometimes that's bearish, but we were below the VWAP right there, and we were just basically chopping, going sideways. So the really nice thing about this strategy is it helps you avoid when the market's choppy, the market's not moving, the market's going sideways. It really does help you avoid not taking a trade inside of this range, because you can see that first 15-minute candle, ding, 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 you know, we're stuck. That next candle, ding, 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 we're stuck. The next candle, we're still inside of this opening range on that 15-minute chart. We finally break out here and look at this move. It was absolutely beautiful. What I love about this setup today is, like I said, you're missing out on all of this. This is all just like crappy action. From 9:43 until 10:05, we basically went sideways. We did end up getting the breakout and the trend line break right there. So we broke the trend line break. We then pushed up there to the top of that opening range. So the way that you could play this is, like, could you get long when this breaks out? Sure, you could, knowing that that range is there, maybe if you're like thinking that. But let's just say best case scenario, the nice thing about this breakout there is it's like validating the idea of getting long up here, because you saw that, like, hey, look, we got the entry there, we got the signal. So if we do break this opening range, well, there's no reason for me to like short. You know, I'm definitely not going to short up here at the top, that's for sure. So what am I going to look for? Well, now I'm looking for this move up. So as we break out here, people ask me on Instagram and on YouTube, like, when do you buy the opening range breakout? Do you buy the pullback? Do you buy the first candle that breaks out? Like, what do you do? Like, what's the best way to go about it? It really comes down to price action. A couple things to think about. Like, number one, is there anything like in this level? Like, is there a resistance here? Is there anything in this level that would stop us from going higher? Is there a pivot point? Is the VWAP? Like, whatever, is there anything there? Like, asking myself, is there a resistance there that's going to cause this to want to pull back? Now, you can see we broke from the 73s. We pushed up there to the 78s. That's 5 points. We did get the pullback right there, and then the beautiful breakout to the upside. And look at this thing, straight to the moon. The Patrick Whelan just type of setups here, just breaking, all the way up there to the 93s. So that trade right there alone, you know, let's say you waited for the pullback. You got in there at the 73s, 75s, gets the move up to the 95s, 94s. I mean, that's 20 points. That's 20 points on the ES on one contract, trading just one ES contract. That's $1,000 in profit off of this one trade, that one move. Is it guaranteed to be profitable every day? No. But as you see, what did this thing do for us today? It helped us avoid trading through this chop, and then we got the breakout, and then whoop, we're right on up there. We got another breakout here again with the Lux Algo breakout from the 90s up there to almost the 98s. We talked about all these key levels as it was happening live on YouTube. But again, that 15-minute chart, what's it doing? It's allowing us to avoid, a lot of this kind of choppy, crappy action. And then look, as soon as that broke out, look at how beautiful this price action was. If you got chopped up inside of this, price action in the morning, you're like, man, I wish I would have just waited. Well, guess what? If you just waited for this, look at that move. I mean, there's that beautiful move we're looking for. This is the type of trades that we want, this type of action that we want. So the ES paying out big, 20 points, one contract. You get a 20-point move on one contract, that's $1,000. You get a 10-point move, it's $500 on one contract there on the ES. Also, just looking here at the SPY, what I want to point out too is, like we talked about, was there anything going on in terms of pivot points or any resistance when we broke out there? There wasn't. We are above the VWAP. We really didn't have any reason to get stuck right there. We broke above that opening range. We had the VWAP up there. My targets, kind of that pivot point area where all that liquidity was sitting at. And there's the move. Like, that's the thing to think about. Like, do I buy the breakout right away? Well, if the market's showing strength, if we're pushing, momentum's there, sure, buy the breakout. You can always wait for the pullback. It can go both ways, right? Like, some days you're going to get a better entry by getting in right when we break out. Some days you're going to get a better entry maybe waiting for the pullback. It just really depends on the price action, the momentum. Especially if we go sideways really tight for a while. I like to think about that too. Like, if we're going really tight for a while, tight, we're holding, we're not going down, like, we're just kind of holding, going sideways. If we do get a breakout, it's going to be much more consistent and much more like powerful to the upside. So it's harder, I would say, to like time the entry perfectly. It's more of just like, hey, momentum is showing up, there's strength, I want to get long, let's go to the moon. So that's the breakout on the ES there, or the 15-minute chart. The NASDAQ, same setup. Almost, even better on the NASDAQ today, I would say, but similar setup. So we had the 15-minute breakout. Again, looking at the 15-minute chart, there's your first 15-minute candle. We open up there, 9:30, 9:45. Here's your next 15-minute candle. We kind of chopped below that opening range for a minute, and then guess what? Look at this thing. Would you just look at it? Look how tight this thing was. Getting super tight, but guess what? We didn't break out until here. A little bit of chop around there. The NASDAQ's always going to be a little bit more like kind of choppy, I would say, a little bit more volatile. The breakouts aren't as clean. You get more, a little bit of pullbacks. There's more range in the NASDAQ compared to the ES. But as you can see, worst case scenario, you're basically like, let's say you got in there at the 13s. It pulls back here, the 700s. Is it the best setup? No, I don't, do I want to risk 10 on that? But still, the setup was there. It ended up squeezing higher. Obviously, in hindsight, the thing is, like, if I'm going to be entering a trade here on the NASDAQ, it's like, okay, if I want to buy this breakout, I got to ask myself, like, where's my stop at? So let's say even if I got stopped out right here, let's say I risked 7 points. I got stopped out. Okay, I risked 7. Not a big deal. Let's say I got out for 7-point loss. Not a big deal at all. But then guess what? We start to break out here again, and then I get long here at the 16s, and then I take a 20-point move to the upside. So now it's like I took 20 points there on that move. So, on the day right there, I would still be up, 13 points on that. Terrible 3, but that's a 3. That's 13 points. And then look, the upside potential here was from the 15s up there to the 90s. So you're getting a, 70, 60-point move. You risk 7 on the first trade, you lost 7 on the first trade, you make 60 on the next trade. So the risk reward is there. I know someone's gonna say, like, well, it broke out, but then it pulled back. Yeah, like I said, there is no strategy that's 100%. Does it happen? Do we get fake outs? Sure. We get these breakouts and pullbacks, but again, it's like the NASDAQ, we know the NASDAQ likes to really kind of like chop around and do stupid stuff sometimes. So you got to keep that in mind. If you're trading the NASDAQ versus the ES, just keep that in mind, right? Like just keep that in mind. One thing I do want to show you here is on the QQQ. If you don't have these ETF charts pulled up, please pull them up. Like, look at these charts. You can see on the QQQ, the thing about that like breakout area was we had that pivot point right there, 332.87. So we had that pivot point right there when we were breaking out. So that was kind of an area of support. So if you were long there, it's like, okay, like, I know that pivot point's there. The QQQ is still going higher here. But the big focus, again, it's like, do you want to buy the breakout? It's one of those things. Like, is the risk better to buy the breakout here? Is it better to buy the pullback? it really comes down to momentum. Some days you're gonna miss out on the breakout. You wait for the next pullback. Not a bad plan, especially here today. You wait for that next breakout right there, and then we go. And you can see that move from the 705s up there to the 90s. So the 15-minute chart on the NASDAQ, the ES today, playing out perfectly. This is a strategy that we talk about here on the channel all the time. We talk about it live. And yeah, like again, I just don't know why anyone would make this overcomplicated. The problem is, if you're a new day trader and you're like trying to learn all these different strategies, you have all these like ideas of what you should be trading, how to trade and when to trade and like what rules and all this stuff. A lot of times what you're doing is you're just overcomplicating it. You're creating a trading paralysis where you don't take a trade because you're like, well, I have 10 indicators and 9 indicators are bullish, but 1 indicator is bearish. So what do? You end up not taking the trade. You end up missing out on it, and then you get FOMO, and then you jump into the trade at a higher price, and then it pulls back, and then you lose money. And that's a very common thing for new traders. That's what they love to do, right? Like, it's hard because when you're new, you're looking to like validate your idea. You're like, okay, if this breaks to the upside, it's gonna go higher. And then guess what? It breaks to the upside, and then you're like, oh, well, it did it. It's going higher. Like, now what do I do? Like, now you're thinking to yourself, like, what do I do now? I missed out on my entry. I predicted it. It's going higher. Oh my gosh, what do I do? And then what do? Like, you end up FOMOing into it at the top. It pulls back naturally. The market pulls back, always pulls back naturally. The market pulls back. Look at this little trade right here. On this thing from the 90s right now. Looking for this push up there, the 96s. See if I get filled. And getting filled there. Like it. I like it. I like it a lot. And yeah, there it is. So basically from the 190s there, basically from the 190 50s up there, the 96s, I'll show you guys kind of what I was looking at here really quickly while we're in it here on the ES. We had that breakout right there, basically holding this trend line. I've been kind of really focusing a lot more on the trend lines here. Obviously, we know the breakouts, but also focusing on the trend lines for support. So we have this 90-50s trend line support. There it is, the 96.75. So I do like that. I'll make a video talking about this later on, but I just want to show you guys I am not just sitting here preaching to you. I'm not just preaching to you about how to trade. I'm actually trading, and I'm showing you guys kind of what I'm doing every day here. So if you guys haven't already hit that like button, subscribe button, you know what to do. I'll talk to you guys later on.